I'm a sociologist, and I study the meaning of technological skill and how that relates to inequality. So I focus on questions like the ones I'll be talking about today. What does it mean to be good with technology? And who does that include? Typically, when we think about those questions, especially the second one, we think of this word, geek. Imagine who that is. Who is the typical person that comes to mind? The stereotype. Maybe it's someone behind a computer who is male, white, wears glasses. This is an idea that gets circulated. People like Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg are often thought of as the geek archetype. This stereotype suggests that being a geek is something people are born with, something that you are or are not. It makes it seem like technological ability isn't something you can learn. If we believe the geek stereotype, we might think groups currently underrepresented in tech just don't have the talent and never will. But my research shows that just isn't true. So my goal is to push back on that stereotype. But how do we do that? My answer is to empirically study what it really means to be good with technology. Now, I started this research when I was teaching technology classes at a small public middle school in Oakland, California, called Urban Promise Academy, or UPA. So here's a picture of me, fresh out of college, talking to one of my students. And as a teacher, I wanted to understand what it means to be good with technology so I could better support my students' learning. My first thought as a teacher was I'll go to the educational, the state standards and national standards. And when I looked, this is a picture of just a sample of what I found. You'll notice that in the pink and the yellow is the repetition of the words, skills, and literacies. But there is little mention of learning and how people build skills and literacies as technologies change. Being good with technology today doesn't necessarily mean you'll be good with it tomorrow. So I needed to study what it is that helps people learn new technologies. To do this, I went to award-winning programs all across the country that serve a diverse group of students, like UMedia Chicago and Global Kids. I observed and interviewed about 100 tech-savvy teens in these programs to see what makes them so good with technology. Now, before I get to what I found, I just want to give you a taste of what it was that I was trying to understand. So a girl I called Jasmine, who was really good at tech learning, she was from a middle-class neighborhood on Chicago's South Side. She's Black and she lived with her mom, grandmother, and brother. She attended a middle-class grammar school, but one that had very little technology education. In fact, they didn't identify Jasmine when I asked about techie teens at the school. But Jasmine told me about the secret skills she developed outside of school and that she was really good with technology. So I asked her to learn how to use Scratch, a tool developed at MIT to learn the basics of programming using blocks. And she solved the challenge of moving an orange cat from the left side of the white box to the right side in less than 5 minutes, faster than anyone else I asked to do this task. So, what helped Jasmine and other techie teens like her? Well, what I found is that these teens use 5 learning habits. 3 are general habits. You can see them in yellow. They can apply to any area of learning, and they're key to technology learning. And they look a certain way when learning new technology. Those three are developing a willingness to try and fail, managing frustration and boredom, and using information and people as models in the learning process. The other two habits in pink are technology specific. Those two are design logic, or thinking about why a technology is designed the way that it is and how that relates to what you want to do with it. And finally, efficiencies, or seeking out faster ways of using technologies like keyboard commands. So that's the answer to the question of what does it really mean to be good with technology? It means developing and using each of these 5 habits. That redefinition of what it really means to be good with technology can start to push back on the idea that only certain people are born with technological ability. However, it might give you the wrong picture if I just ended there. You might conclude that groups underrepresented in tech fields just haven't developed these habits. But what I found in additional research using a measure I developed to understand differences in the 5 habits called the Digital Adaptability Scale is a much more complicated picture. So I looked at, do these habits differ by gender? What I found was that there are many similarities between male identifying and female identifying teens, but also key differences. So looking at each of the habits, perhaps contrary to popular beliefs, girls aren't scared of technology any more than boys. They're willing to try and fail, they manage frustration and boredom, and they also use models while they learn. And that makes a lot of sense, given how well girls tend to do in school. They already have the 3 general learning habits. But there are gender differences. And these differences hinge on the 2 technology-specific habits, design logic and efficiencies. These habits require explanation. So somebody's not telling them all the information that they need to know. So there's gatekeeping going on. It might not be on purpose, but those insider tricks are not being shared with girls as much as they are with boys. I also looked to see if the 5 habits differ by race, ethnicity, and social class. The answer, simply put, no. When it comes to race, ethnicity, and social class, there are no significant differences in these habits. That's very different from digital divide rhetoric that suggests low-income students, Black, Latinx, Indigenous, etc., lack skill. What my research shows instead is they are not being recognized and rewarded for their talents. When we don't know what it means to be good with technology is exactly when bias creeps in and irrelevant cues, like race, become the defining features. Now, what can we do to push back on stereotypes that block girls from building skills and disregard the talent that already exists among groups that have been historically marginalized in tech? Well, we can think again about this word geek, and we can reimagine who that is as a person who develops a strong set of learning habits. This redefinition can and should include anyone and everyone. And it can help us to encourage people to develop these habits and bring a more equitable and inclusive technological future.